There we go. Happy Tuesday. It is June 16th, and hopefully that reminds everybody that yesterday they were supposed to pay their quarterly taxes. And hopefully you have some that you got to pay. I got mine done at about 10:30 last night. So anyway, today, another This Week in Real Estate. Got some interesting subject matters. I dropped a few of them on you yesterday, but I had a new one come today. And this is from one of our newer agents, and we were just talking about it earlier on the business development series. So this is out of the Midland and Gladwin area, where I want you guys to think about this scenario. Here we go. Someone calls in and says, "Hi, I'd like to get some information on this particular property." And you do a great job being the agent that you are. You ask some great questions. And knowing that we need to get a signed agreement prior to signing or before showing a home, before touring, as the agreement is written, you find out that mom is not the buyer who is actually called on it, but her son. And mom needs to see the house because son is not in the area. Son lives about 2 hours away. Everybody got that scenario? If you had any experience, guys, you've run into this one. So now the question comes up. What do I do now that the son has written an offer with somebody else, which has been accepted? Uh-oh. So guys, here's really what the reason is that I bring this up. This happens. This has happened. In my small group of having 16 people on the BDS this morning, 2 people were currently dealing with it. So here becomes the question that you've got to take a look at. We know we've got to sign a contract with the individual we're going to show a home to, right? But if that person isn't the buyer, So let's discuss. What do we do in the future with this circumstance? You guys come off and help me out and tell me what we do.
You ask for the son's information and you contact him and talk directly with him.
Yeah, and of course, if we want to make sure we get paid because he's the buyer, what do we do?
Have him sign the buyer's agreement. But in that contact with him, you find out whether or not he's already represented. And if not, then yes, you proceed to get your exclusive buyer agency agreement signed.
We've got to work with the actual buyer. And that was the key to this. Wonderful new agent, did everything correct that you can think of, other than to realize that if mom's not the buyer, what she signed didn't mean anything. See, that's the key. It didn't make any difference that she actually signed, outside of we took care of the responsibility requirement of having an agency agreement signed. So when her son ended up buying the property and wrote the offer through somebody else, which got accepted, what recourse does she have? The thought came up of maybe procuring cause. Nope. Highly unlikely, because the buyer, she didn't introduce him. She introduced mom to that situation. So the bottom line becomes this: ask the great questions, find out everything that this agent did. But now that we have this settlement in place, guys, we need the actual signature from the buyer. However, this scenario brings up one other situation. Now I have the signature of the buyer. I have an agreement stating that I get paid if you buy this house. But I don't have an agreement with the person I'm touring the house with. Because mom's looking at it, not the actual buyer. How might we cover ourselves there? Brenda, you can't play.
You have to have an agency disclosure.
Well, the agency disclosure is going to go along with the agreement, but the settlement says, and what we learned last week is that the government, state legislature is working on a law to coordinate what the settlement says. We need an agreement, but we've always had to do disclosure. But we now, with the settlement, have to have an agreement with the individual we're showing.
Do an agreement with the mom just for that particular property.
I think that is one way of being able to do it. Is actually you might have two separate agreements, one for mom and one for the son. What might we be able to do to combine that?
Put them both on the same agreement?
Yeah, you might put them both on the same agreement. The other is that maybe we can get by with a simple statement. And by the way, I don't have an answer to this. We've literally, this has probably been a couple of weeks that we've been on this one. And the end result is I don't know that there's an absolute. Marjorie's would be one way of being able to do that, but I could see mom going, well, I don't want to sign a contract. I'm not buying it. And yet, what if we put a simple statement that property is being shown to mom on son's behalf? You know, I think we've got ourselves covered by settlement terms because we put that on the contract that she's looking at it on behalf of. Okay. And the only other, there's one other obvious. If mom's got a POA, she could sign mom on behalf of son as POA.
What about with
That makes sense? Go ahead, Marjorie.
what about with the legal guardianship? Like,
Yep, that would be the same as the POA.
mhm.
Or personal representative or trustee of an estate. There's a number of ways that could be done. Okay? So, any other thoughts toward that? Any questions toward that? So I always say, everybody, when you see Jennifer, thank her because she's the one that brought this one up, and I hadn't considered it. And we've been out of the, geez, what are we, 2 years since the settlement took care of? It'll be 2 years on August 17th. So, all right, well, let's talk contracts. And I'm going to pull up, I'm going to make sure I get the right one. I'm going to walk you through an actual scenario that had come up. Where's my share? There's my share. I'm not sharing screen one. So this is a redacted PA. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. It was our agent as the listing agent. Nothing out of the ordinary. Matter of fact, you'll see that this purchase agreement looks fairly familiar, but it's not ours. Any issues that you see up front here? By the way, if you hear a printer going in the afternoon, that's my wife printing out things to be able to show homes, and that's what the background might be noise. But do you see any issues? And I'll kind of point it out in this area.
The appliances aren't included there. Whatever is included on the listing ticket?
You got it. So Marjorie, you're right. And what I would put is, to simplify what you just said, it's blank. Doesn't say anything. So as a listing agent and receiving this, one of the things that hits me is, well, wait a minute. We were leaving appliances. You don't even have anything written in here. Were you planning on appliances being included? Not a good way to be able to write an offer. If you put none, now I know. You didn't miss anything. You weren't intending. As a listing agent, I have to see this and go, well, wait a minute. Did you want them or didn't you? Does my seller have to remove them or not? And of course, even the second one, items specifically excluded in this agreement or MLS publication must be listed hereafter, or they will be deemed included in the sale. Again, it's left blank. I don't like blanks. I want to know.
Darwin,
Is there something or is there not something? Go ahead, Renee.
I'd be more concerned about the way they wrote the price.
Yeah. So I didn't even get to that. And you know, honestly, it's interesting, Renee. I didn't notice that until you just said that. So here's 39 years of experience. I didn't notice. What does it really say? It says 300, 200. That's not 300,226. It's 300, 226. That by itself is not right. Now, we could make the assumption and we could go, well, yeah, but when they put in the numbers, they had it right. Well, guys, let's not leave anything open for interpretation, because if I'm greedy and I want to take advantage of the opportunity, could I not argue that it was 326? There's a clerical error here, obviously. So we've got to make sure that we do this. On our purchase agreement, I believe, if I remember correctly, we put in the numbers and then the system automatically converts it to the written word. But yeah, banks take what the written number is, not the number. So it's just another one that we've got to look over all of these offers. And by the way, we need to make sure that we take care of our own. So this is a real situation, a real offer that came through that was accepted. Now, by the way, I don't have the accepted PA that I'm showing you because our great agent did make corrections and get things done correctly. But here's one of the things that, you know, Renee, one of our great branch managers up there in Lapeer, I know Lori's on here out of Richmond. We need to know specifically, if you ever come to us with an issue, I need to know what the paperwork is, because this looks just like our purchase agreement. But when you get down to it, there's something missing throughout this entire purchase agreement, and you can see my note. There's nothing about an appraisal. This offer is not contingent upon an appraisal, which makes this paragraph, guys, this is a method of payment. They've said it's a cash sale with new mortgage. We know it's a conventional type of mortgage. We know that they're supposed to apply within 2 days and that they need to get a, what's this one? Commitment conditional only upon marketable title and satisfactory survey, if it's required. However, it says this agreement is contingent upon the buyer securing a conventional mortgage, and that is it. Doesn't say anything about in the amount of or with a certain amount down. And I think you can see why we don't use the dollar amount, but we have it in there, but the percentage. Because if there's a counter offer, I'm still bound to the number that I put in. It's contingent upon them getting a conventional loan in the amount of, we can't leave these blank. Otherwise, all they got to do is get a declination on any mortgage at all. Could be a conventional mortgage with 0 down. Could be a conventional mortgage with 50% down. They no longer qualify, offers dead, because we didn't fill in the blanks. So that was 2 of the things that I wanted you to notice about this offer. Initials, guys, we just don't want to leave anything open. And of course, this was completed correctly, but we don't want to leave anything open for initials or signatures. We don't want an attorney to get their hands on this and for some reason say, well, we didn't have this particular page. There's just lots of stuff. And there's places where you could have folks initial something. You could have them initial when we don't even need it. However, it might be a really good recommendation for you to do something like that, where you want to highlight and make sure that we're covered. Now, here's the next one. $3,000 in the form of a check. An additional sum, again, they left it blank, to be tendered within 2 days, making a total of $3,000. Not a real issue, but I highlighted that. I put the star there because I'm going to come back to that. Let's see, was there anything else that really, oh yes, I remember. All of our initials there. The reason I'm highlighting default is because in this case, the question was, did the buyer default on this deal? Property inspection, that was part of the question. Did they violate here, or are they in breach because of? But I want you to catch this. Buyers agree to pay $1,000 over any higher offer with proof of complete offer and pre-approval up to a maximum of $326,226. Buyers agree to a full price appraisal guarantee. Now, that's how simple it is. And we're going to talk about acceleration clauses and appraisal guarantees. You may remember me bringing this up. Let me just see if I can flash this up real quick. Bum, bum, bum. When you look at these questions, does the escalation and appraisal guarantee address these? Didn't address it, did it? That becomes an issue, especially if this were our buyer. So that's what I wanted to make you aware of first. Which one do I got? This one. Okay. This is poorly written in a lawsuit waiting to happen, becomes the bottom line. So now, having all of this, we've gone through inspection. That wipes out one contingency. However, in the end, we get a statement that they have been declined. They were declined for financing. Well, it's because the appraisal came in low. Anybody see an issue already? They were declined because the appraisal was low. is that the reason they were actually declined? Well, shame on the mortgage person, because the mortgage person gave a little too much information, never actually gave us a letter of declination, but said, well, dear buyer, due to your financial changes that you've had, we can't get you the mortgage you want. Obviously, the buyer did something that was really dumb. Did they do it intentionally? Knowing what I know, I kind of got a feeling that's what they did. Bottom line is this came to me and said, do we have any way that our seller can keep the earnest money deposit? There was no clear answer to that question. And I will guide you that, look, I had a slam dunk, no doubt. The seller deserved every bit of the earnest money deposit on a deal. And my agent didn't listen to me. She listened to the agent. She said, no, I want all of it. He turned it over to an attorney. He had already offered half, otherwise $5,000 of a $10,000 earnest money deposit, because he wanted out. I said, take it. Even though clearly he was backing out for a reason other than what the purchase agreement would allow it, I would advise her to take it. She didn't. They go to an attorney. He brings up something stupid. By the way, condominium bylaws. Got them, even though they were sent to the buyer's agent. She ended up with nothing. In this case, our agent pulled off what I call a miracle, and they actually got 100% of the earnest money deposit. They got all $3,000. And the offer was dead. Okay? Rare. And that's why I say I believe it was basically a miracle. I'm going to take a look at my notes. And while I'm looking at my notes to make sure, here's one other thing I want, is we talk contracts, not this one in particular. But why are dates important? So if we're handwriting, dates, or if we have to do a drop on an agreement, why is it important that we have the dates to go along with signatures? Show a time of what was done, Holly. Yes. Why is that important? I think of, well, here, I'll throw this out. I'm not a fan of personal property addendums. Yep, just in case it goes south. Let's take the personal property addendum. It should be written on the purchase agreement, but there are agreements that don't have a section to be able to write personal property, which case a personal property addendum is necessary. But then you get somebody, and we'll say ours has that space. Put it on the purchase agreement, guys. As a matter of fact, add existing, that word, existing, stove, refrigerator, la, 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 la. Okay? Otherwise, they only have to leave a stove, a refrigerator. They don't have to leave the one that you actually were intending to keep. So again, it's a safe thing. I've not been before a grievance, professional standards. I've never been in court, and I believe there's a good reason for that, okay? But then the listing broker and the listing agent are, I'm going to use the term ignorant. That's a lack of knowledge. I'm not being rude. Says, well, I need the personal property addendum signed also? Now, no, you don't, because you put it on the purchase agreement. You don't need a personal property addendum. You don't need it. It's already covered. But they insist. So you send it over, signed by your buyer. But they're not the same. If you didn't put a date down on something, could that be an issue? Because at that point, what one came first? Dates are important. Make sure that they're on your agreements. That becomes the bottom line. It's the identifier, because the last one signed is what's going to rule. Okay? And by the way, when it comes to the personal property, because I did bring it up, if you put it on the purchase agreement, don't use a personal property addendum. If you use a personal property addendum, refer to it on the purchase agreement, but don't list anything else out, because the personal property addendum will rule. All right? Questions about any of that with contracts?
I have a question about a contract.
Jeff Leach, you would.
Of course I do. All right, so our buyer has an unsatisfactory home inspection. They create an addendum asking for some changes.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this one.
Listing agent calls back and verbally back and forth, you decide on something. Day later, you change your addendum, send it to the listing agent, and the listing agent says, "Oh, I'm sorry, we sold that house to somebody else."
Oh, oops. Everybody understand what Jeff just created for us? I'm sure not that this has happened. Oh, wow. So guys, our purchase agreement is what we're using, and that's what Jeff has brought to us. This is our buyer, our purchase agreement. Our buyer says, we've completed, we would like you to do this. We have a verbal agreement that then gets sent over for signature on an addendum. And seller says, oh yeah, no, we decided not to go with yours. We've accepted another offer. So somebody tell me the obvious problem. Marjorie's shaking her head there. No mutual release. Literally, it ended with, okay, verbal agreement. We know that everything in real estate has to be in writing.
Well, there was a notice of dissatisfactory home inspection with new proposal that was sent over to them. Then there was
With a
verbal.
request of do these things. So everything was legit. Everything was good. It was to the terms of the purchase agreement. Even had a verbal agreement. And then the seller says, yeah, no, we're no longer going to do that. We've already accepted another offer. Marjorie, you want to jump in on it?
They're still under contract with the first buyer
Why do you say that?
because there was no release. I mean,
So one, there's no release.
Negotiating
right,
for the repairs that or dissatisfaction of the
Was there any change to the purchase agreement?
no.
What was the only thing that occurred?
the home
A proposed change of the purchase agreement.
Mhm.
But guys, here's where we got to know what our purchase agreement says. Any inspection clause is the biggie. And most of them, guys, let's just see out of curiosity. Yep. In the event, oops, let me pull this back up. Sorry. Get my share. Oh, come on, go away. Give me a second here. Go away. All right, share. Back to screen one. This says the same thing as ours. Guys, you need to know the inspection clause and how it's worded. And what I want you to catch is down here at 26D. In the event seller and buyer are unable to reach an agreement to buyer's proposals made under A or B, buyer shall either elect to proceed with the transaction, waiving the contingency in writing, or declare void, the agreement void by election of C. So who can kill the purchase agreement? The buyer or the seller?
Buyer.
It's the buyer. In Jeff's scenario that he gave us, can the seller kill the deal? No. They cannot, should not have done what they did. Guys, it's important that we know our inspection contingency. It's important that we know our purchase agreement. And this is a great lesson using this, that it's not our PA. One word, one paragraph can change everything. We need to know our documents. So Jeff, that's a great one. So guys, bottom line is you go, well, you better try to kill that puppy real quick because my buyer is going to proceed with the closing. Now, make sure your buyer's planning to proceed to the closing, but the buyer has that opportunity, not the seller. Jeff, how did we do? Do we need to add anything to that?
No, that was perfect. I'll let you know what happens.
All right.
Hey, Darwin.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a couple questions for you.
We're
First of
gonna go
all,
back to the PPA.
why don't you like personal property sheets? And secondly, if you get an offer with an escalation clause that's poorly written, like that one was, what is the best way to respond if your seller is interested in that offer? How do you fix that? I mean, yeah. Just wonder
Great
what your
question,
thoughts are.
Okay, so let's hang to the PPA real quick, personal property addendums. Why does Darwin not like them? Because people are ignorant and they are creating fraudulent activity. So for my friends who are fairly new to the business, you haven't run into it yet, but you will. Somebody is going to want to buy the big garden tractor that's worth $10,000. Okay, you with me in that scenario? Do banks mortgage $10,000 garden tractors? No, the answer is no. Any personal property of any large value, mortgage companies don't want to mortgage money on those items because they're personal property. So people use a personal property addendum. I'm trying to keep this one short. People errantly, without talking to a mortgage person, put a big old tractor on there or any large item, boat, it's on a lake, got to get a boat. Anything of large of value that's personal property. They'll put it on the addendum, or excuse me, they'll put it on the purchase agreement. Everything gets agreed to. It goes to the mortgage person. The mortgage person sees it, goes to underwriting. If the mortgage person didn't catch that, oh, you got to remove that. We don't finance on tractors. We don't finance boats with a mortgage, right? So you got to do an addendum to remove that from the purchase agreement. Everything good and above table there? Absolutely. But then the mortgage person, ignorant of what they're actually doing, says, You know, Debbie, just put it on another addendum, but I don't want to see it. So you write one addendum that says that's no longer included. And then you do another addendum that says, yeah, it's included, but we don't share it with a mortgage company. Picture the proverbial take your addendum and just, you know, we'll do that. You guys have heard it, under the table. Now you get to the closing, and you may not ever have even recognized that it happens. But one of the final documents in the mortgage paperwork is a federal document that says, we have closed this to the terms of the agreement, that you have no other side agreements. Buyer signs it, seller signs it. What was this addendum that you left under the table that you didn't report to the mortgage company? A side agreement tied to the transaction, federally funded loan, federally backed loan, mortgage fraud. Now, if you referred to it on the purchase agreement, no problem. We can't hide it. It's part of the purchase agreement. People don't do that. Most of the time, they're fine. But it's when they become fraudulent agreements that it becomes an issue. And by the way, the remote areas, those are where most don't understand what they're doing.
So Darwin?
Yep.
Yeah, I just received an offer for one of my listings, and it had within the purchase agreement that they used a line item that you check the box that there's a bill of sale, personal property attached. They had forgotten to check it, but they had a bill of sale attached. I made sure we got that fixed up with a check mark put in there and everybody initialing that that's been added before we went under contract, you know, as part of our counter offer. But
Smart.
yeah, and it had both inclusions and exclusions on that. Like my seller wanted to be able to take a shed with them if they want to, so we want to make sure that was on there. But okay, so you get this offer, you don't like, you kind of want to steer away from personal.
Let me clarify real quick, James. There are purchase agreements where they have to use a personal property addendum because they don't have any space to write personal property on the purchase agreement.
Right.
So in which case I'm good with it. But we need to know we can't play the game in the scenario I just talked. Got
you. So in that scenario, yeah, you kind of, but I wanted to make sure that it was checked.
Yes.
That this was
because
attached.
We want people to know that there is an addendum.
Yes.
To this agreement. And that way 100%. They can't hide it. You got it.
And I brought it up to my sellers as I was going through that. I said, if you guys want to accept it, we got to clean this up.
Yep.
Because we need to know.
It's a great way of being able to. We have an acceptable purchase agreement, except for it was poorly written or they've got blanks. There's something that was missing. That I love what you said. We've got to clean it up.
Yeah. And a lot of personal property sheets, even our one in the past, says this stuff's coming of no value and with no warranty to it and things like that. If we just put that stuff on our purchase agreement, do you recommend putting some wording about it not having value and not having any kind of warranty?
Yes. So now, James, you're giving me the opportunity to transition to the next subject, which is clauses.
Okay.
There are simple ones. Excuse me. There are simple ones like what James just brought up that we can use, that we could just write out because the term is, and once you've written this a couple of times, it's fairly easy to remember. The pool table is being left at the seller convenience of the seller and holds no monetary value. That's it. So that clause exists in the clause libraries for sky slope, transaction desk, and everything else that we use, dot loop, that's in there. But it's so simple that once you've written it a few times, you don't need to use it. It's almost easier to type it in than it is to actually use the clause. But it's in there. The key to it then becomes, with this particular one, is that mortgage companies will allow larger items that are difficult to move to be left at the convenience of the seller. But they want that statement that it holds no monetary value. So here's examples. Pianos, heavy and hard to move. Pool tables, gun safes. Gosh, what am I missing? It seems like there's, anybody help me out? Is there something else?
A
Pool
pontoon boat.
tables, ping pong tables, all the things.
Yeah, there's just there's a lot of stuff. The key is if there's true, like a ping pong table, they don't want to finance a pool table or a ping pong table for 30 years. Yet, how much is a ping pong table? So it's easy to say, hey, this is being left at the convenience of the seller, holds no monetary value. Now, you still may get something like a ping pong table, and a lender's going to go, yeah, no, we don't need, leave that off. Well, then just seller or buyer, are you okay with us leaving that ping pong table and it stays there? Okay. But there's just lots of things. Things they don't mind: appliances, stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer, microwave. They're always good with those things. It's the unusual heavy objects. And by the way, often a mortgage company is okay with a dock staying. So if you have a dock that can be pulled in and out, it's not on pilings drove into the ground, that can be easily removed. If it can be easily removed, if it's got wheels or it's got slides, and the buyer wants it, I'm going to talk to my mortgage person first, but that's what's going to be left on there. Or they're going to say, well, you might have to remove it, and then don't hide it under the table. If they say remove it, it's removed from the transaction. As I always put it, we don't negotiate on tractors. Obviously, guys, for the personal property addendums, personal property sheets, if it's not on the PA because they don't have the room, they're fine and acceptable. On our side, we should be putting it on the PA and not signing an additional one. It's not necessary. It's on the purchase agreement. But you will get agents who will come to you and say, well, my broker says. Well, no, my broker says I don't, because it's on the PA. It's addressed. I don't know how much simpler we could make it to people, but you believe me, you will get arguments from them. So clauses, as you could see from the one that I gave you, it was not well written. That was a lawsuit waiting to happen, and could have, except for they probably got enough information to realize that, hey, maybe we should just forfeit this $3,000 and be able to move on, which that's what this particular buyer did. But had it not, who knows where that would have went. I'm guessing for $3,000, not far. But to avoid that, use the clauses that are written in all of your MLS and all of the signing tools. So the one that gives us the best information, and the reason that we should, is an escalation clause. And in this case, with the appraisal guarantee. So, you know, one of the things I've been sharing with some is in regards to teaching, we need to first realize that we don't know. We need to know that we don't know. When they talk about 4 states of competency, I've got to be a conscious incompetent. At some point, I got to realize I don't know. Well, here's where it's at with clauses, and in particular, the escalation, the appraisal guarantee. The reason I throw these questions out is to be able to go, wow, I didn't think about that. I guess I understand why I got to have a more lengthy verbiage to my clause. Because what if, what if, what if? So now everybody's seeing that. Let me take what actually exists for you to be able to use. And again, guys, I know it doesn't fit on an addendum. My recommendation, type it out and get it, create it on your own Word, whatever you use. But you can copy this. It won't fit on the current addendum. Unless if you're in transaction desk, as far as I know, it does cover it there. So remembering all those questions, here's what it does. If prior to the seller's ratification of contract, seller receives one or more additional written bona fide offers. Because remember, if we don't address this, they could have anybody write an offer that could benefit the seller. And your buyer would be up a creek, which shall be from a party who is unrelated, unfamiliar, unaffiliated to the seller, and acting independently and in their own self-interest. Now, that sounds like a lot of legal jargon, but does that protect your buyer? The answer is yes. Isn't that what our job is to do? Of course, the terms have to be acceptable to the seller from these other offers, from which the seller would receive an equal or higher net. See, if you don't address that, somebody's saying, give me 3%. Give me 6%. Toward closing cost, tax, prepaids, any other allowable expense. Another clause. Now, all of a sudden, your buyer would be paying a whole lot more because you didn't address it. You just said, higher offer. Shall automatically increase by X amount of dollars above any other offers net. Should have highlighted that to the seller, not to exceed a maximum price of. Most of us get in those big deals like this gal did in writing on this previous offer that we used to take a look at. The bona fide offers may not be contingent upon the selling or closing of another residence. Do those type of offers, which are contingent upon the sale or closing of, often are those higher than what would normally be negotiated? Yes. You didn't protect your seller, your buyer, if you don't have this. If the other offer includes escalation terms, we need to address that. Because what do you do? Well, this says it's gone up to whatever their maximum was. We'd go over as long as it's still under our maximum. And of course, then there's the issue of the appraisal. Have we truly covered that? If the lender's appraisal is less than the agreed sales price, what happens? I've shared with you previously what another agent ran into and how it went into the courts, and the buyer won, and then it went into appeal, and I don't know what happened after the appeal, but the purchaser agrees to proceed to the settlement and pay up to blank dollars difference from the amount of the lender's appraisal in cash. If the settlement does not occur due to the purchaser's failure to comply with the terms of this paragraph, the purchaser shall be in default. Bam! Clear. You're in default. Now let it go to courts, and the judge knows what would happen. The judge can say, well, here's what you signed, give them the money. And then there's, oh, what if? In the event that the appraised value of the property is performed by a licensed third-party appraiser is less than the purchase price minus the shortfall. Otherwise, I told you I'd guarantee it to $15,000, but the appraisal was $30,000 short. Everybody see that scenario? I'm hoping you're recognizing what you may have done in the past and where you've had an issue because you didn't address these things. This particular one is what found a former agent of ours. She didn't get in court, but her buyer is the one who took people to court because it was a major shortfall. And then it was, seller, you have to sell it to me for this price. Because there was what I believe all parties were thought the interpretation was. And then there's what the judge said the real interpretation was. So we'll provide a copy of the other offer with a higher net price. So they can't just tell you that they got other offers. You got to show me the one with the net price. And then we're going to do an addendum. And of course, to protect ourselves, buyer, we don't think you should do this. You're doing this on your own volition. You know that you may be paying more for the house than what it's actually worth, but that's up to you. Leave us alone. Questions about that? Wow. I just saw what time it is.
Hey, Darwin.
I didn't. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Hey, just going back to my earlier question. So when we
Yes.
get other offers coming over to us that was like the one you showed us earlier, really weak,
Mhm.
how do you recommend dealing with that and rectifying that if your sellers are interested in that offer, but it's very, very weak and leaves a lot of those questions, if not most of them, unanswered?
Well, listen, I've already given you credit once. I'm going to give you credit twice. I love the term that you use. We need to clean this up. So I only give you credit one more time, and then I own that statement.
Okay.
But I would, because at this point, I think it requires a counteroffer, a rejection of it as it's written, but then we counter by cleaning up what they did wrong. And so that we're not only covering ourselves and our clients, but we get to cover them and their clients so that all of us don't get to a point where we find ourselves in a court of law. So I would take this addendum. If we take a look at what our agent received on that previous one that we looked at, I would take our addendum and clean it up. The terms were fine in what we could assume that buyer was offering, but we should clean it up so that we would take this verbiage, this clause, and put their information into it. And what was missing is principally already there, but we would put it to what, if there's anything, numbers, dates, times, things of that nature, we would put it to what is acceptable to our clients. Great question. What else do we have,
Thank you, Darwin.
guys? You're welcome, James. Glad you're on, man. You always get the great ones. Go ahead, guys. Any others? Wow, I did such a great job again that nobody's got any questions. Thanks for that laugh, Cliff. I appreciate you, man. So, gang, I've got a couple other, but we don't have time for them today. One of them that came to me was okay, there's a low appraisal. Now what? It's not always simple. Just because there's a low appraisal, so what? I've got the aspect of always there's EMD disputes for different varying reason. What is a great reason for people to come out? And of course, there's always the aspect that I think we need to revisit at some point, short sales, because not all of you have ever dealt with those. Those are really now, gosh, I don't know, gang, 10 years has it been? Because it was 2011 that we started to go back up again. and we haven't really recognized them. So I'm guessing it's about 10 years since we've had short sales where everything was a short sale. I also have this other thing called underbids, and I might see if I can get an old specialist that brought this to my attention, because we need to always know and understand about underbids, which come up with foreclosures is where that's at. But continue to bring me your scenarios, just like what Jeff brought me today. That one was unplanned, but boy, was that a great one. So Jeff, thanks for that. Guys, bring me yours. These are one of the most well-attended sessions, because not only do we have, what do we have on here? I think it was around 30, but we also have the offices that have logged into it. And so we've got lots of additional people sitting around a table watching. So bring me those subjects, and we'll run it from there. The next 2 Tuesdays, hopefully you guys have caught, we're going to get into the details of concierge by notable. This is one that I think you need to know is available to us now because of our relationship between Anywhere and Compass coming together. This program is better than it's ever been, and it's offered to all of us now. And then the other is the listing concierge. That will be coming at the end of the month. So the 23rd and then the 30th. So those two great tools that as a brand and a company is being provided to us, an option for us to be able to take advantage of. So those are the next 2 Tuesdays. Anything comes up, phone call, email, text, I answer all of them. Guys, have a great one. Thanks again for participating and helping out. That wraps up another Hot Topic Tuesday. You know what to do. Go talk to people.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Darwin.
You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for bringing that one up today.
No problem.
Thank
Y'all
you,
have a
Darwin.
great one. You got it, man. See you next week, guys.
Darwin.